I got news for you. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. And so that's what I'm going to talk to y'all about. Two things I want to chat about quickly on this amazing Sunday morning is that, and then of course, Black Commission applications are due tomorrow. But I'm going to go live on that tomorrow. And so, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. People are moving away from like trying to pull things out of you if you want to fight so hard, right? And it always blows my mind how many of us will fight for the things that are holding us back instead of using that energy, that vigor, that like whatever it is, to fight for the things that we know will drastically change our life. Where is this coming from? And so, one, I've spent the past 2 beautiful days teaching at A-Fest from Mind Valley, which has been absolutely amazing. I will go on another live on that later. But earlier this week, I had stepped into a class that my husband Derek was teaching to do like a few components and stuff around with him around mindset for the group that he was teaching in, and one of the students who literally needs to double their revenue, right? Needs to double their revenue, and sign up for this class, right? Needs to double their revenue, sign up for this class. And then when I'm giving them advice, and one of my advice was, you need to raise your prices. You are offering too deep of a discount for people that are not repeatable customers of your product and their service, right? And yes, they're buying in larger quantities, but there's a way in which you do that, which is centered around value-based pricing. And this person kept fighting me on this, like that people aren't going to pay this, they're not going to do. It was like a long list of like all the things they're not going to do. And I turned to her and I said the exact same thing. Like, if you want to continue to fight for the limitations, if you want to continue to stay where you're at and not willing to make changes, why did you sign up for this course? Why did you sign up for that class, right? And it's very easy for a lot of us. I feel like I've been there more times than I can begin to account for, until I realize that so much of this is around mindset. And that's why I like to teach it so much, or share with people so much, because I've learned so much about mindset, and it has been an absolute game changer, right? And so Mike Michalowicz always says, whether you think you're right or wrong, either way you're right, right? Whether you think it's going to happen for you or not happen for you, you are right. If you think it's not going to happen for you, you are right. If you think it's going to happen for you, you are also right. Either way, you're right, right? Whatever that thought process is, because when you are thinking very positively about the outcomes of what you desire and whatever it is that you desire, then you start looking at everything as an opportunity as opposed to an obstacle. You look at everything as an opportunity as opposed to an obstacle. And when you think things are not going to go right for you, when you are being very pessimistic, when you are like sitting in it, and we've all sat in it, right? It's very easy to look at every single thing as an obstacle, as a barrier, as like, this feels a lot like it felt the last time I felt disappointment. And it makes it very hard for us to take a step back and be able to look at like the full big picture of everything that is there. But then the other part of it is, I think a lot of people are just, you don't change until you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? There's change, I think, is for human beings and for grown adults, just does not happen until something forces you to make this drastic shift. It forces you to have a different outlook on your life. And I just remember fighting with this person this week so much. And I got to a point where I'm like, hey, let me show you, let me break down the numbers to you of what this looks like. Or just give it a try, right? Everything in life is an assumption until it's proven, right? And it's an experiential process. It is an iterative process in order for us to be able to get to the thing, or get to the place, or have that shift that we need, right? What is it, like an object in motion will stay in motion until something stops it? Well, the opposite is true too, right? Things won't move until something is acted upon it. And I forgot what theory that is, and I know I just chopped that up, but y'all follow me here, right? And so our limitations, like if we continue to fight for them, and it's weird because sometimes our limitations or our limited beliefs, we start to wear that as armor to a certain extent, or we start to wear that as a badge of honor because we finally identified what the thing is that was holding us back or paralyzing us, right, to the point where we cannot move. And then sometimes there's this trophy that we get when we realize that what the thing is, and then we hold on to that of like, all right, now I know what my shit is, right? Now I know what this quicksand is that's holding me down. I just need to know that, like, I know that it exists in my body. I know that this is the reason this is happening to me. And if we're not careful, we hold it as a badge of honor. And I'm going to give you a prime example, and then I saw some comments, right? And so, imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome, for the life of me, and I know there's so many different conversations around this, but you know, what the dictionary, Wikipedia definition of imposter syndrome is, it mostly happens to high performing women where they cannot internalize their success, and so they shrink in moments when they should shine. And I think for me, the most vivid example of holding on and fighting for our limiting beliefs, so then when you fight for the thing that you desire, right, then you get to keep that thing. And so imposter syndrome for me displays that so vividly. Why? Because I started going into these rooms, going into these conferences, going into these environments where people would just say, I got imposter syndrome. You got imposter syndrome too, and you got imposter syndrome too, and you get imposter syndrome, you get imposter syndrome, like Oprah giving away cars. And it just became this very comfortable thing for people to own. And it just started to really disturb me because I'm like, but it's not a good thing. Yes, acknowledging and being aware of what's happening to you, but like there's a reframe that I personally have around imposter syndrome as to why I hate that people wear it as a barrier. And it's that limited belief that people fight for. And when you fight for your limited belief, you absolutely get to keep it. It's yours. You're fighting for it. You raising hell for it. You raising money, like whatever it is. Imposter syndrome, and most people that are experiencing imposter syndrome and wearing it as like this badge of honor of like, I now know what my thing is. You feel like an imposter syndrome not because you're not a high performing person that has achieved these things and you don't want to brag and you want to feel humble, and we're going to talk about that. I talked about it yesterday. But the reframe that I have around imposter syndrome is you feel like you are an imposter because you are. You feel like you are an imposter because you are. And what do I mean by that? You walk into rooms, you walk into meetings, you get on Zooms, you walk into environments, you walk on stages, you show up, and you pretend to be a nobody. And so you pretending to be a nobody that hasn't accomplished anything, cannot contribute to a conversation, does not contribute to the ideas, although you have all the ideas circling in your head. You have all the insight and the expertise. You have a voice and you do not use it, right? You have the receipts, you have the accolades, and you do not let people know that you've accomplished these things. You've been acknowledged for these things at the highest level, right? You've done the work before, and maybe you failed at doing the work, but in that failure, you've gained insight that can help anyone else moving forward avoid the pitfalls and the minefields and everything else moving forward. Even if it didn't go the way that you wanted to, you have that insight, right? You have that ancestral intelligence around this. That's the other AI that this guy was talking about, right? Not artificial intelligence, but you have ancestral intelligence around all of this. And you do not voice it to add value into the rooms that you are in the conversations, in the meetings, in the projects that you're working on, in the lives that you keep telling yourself that you're trying to change, but you do not show up and support those people. You do not sell them your product. You do not sell them your service. You are being an imposter because you have it and you're pretending that you don't. You have it and you pretend that you don't. You can do it and you're pretending that you don't. You can solve that problem and you are not using your voice when you have a voice. So you are being an imposter. So that's where that uneasiness comes from, right? It literally comes from, and it manifests itself in your body in anxiety and in sweat. And when the light is shining on you, you are shrinking, because in the moment when you were supposed to shine, in the moment where all the degrees, all the expertise, all the late nights, and all the early mornings have led to this point when you are supposed to provide the solution to that problem in that moment, you pretend that you have no solution. You pretend that you have no voice. You know that you need to be seen and acknowledged in that moment, and you're pretending that you don't want the light on you, when you know that you need the light on you in order to really be able to gather all the people and say, this is the way that we need to move forward. When you are called to lead and you do not lead, and you have every capability and possibility to lead and you do not lead, you are being an imposter. And so that is imposter syndrome showing up. That is what you are really feeling. It's not this thing where you don't like you have the receipts and you are pretending that you don't. And that is fighting for your limitations. And so if you're going to fight for all of that, if you're going to fight the good fight to accomplish all of that, and in the moment people need it the most, you act like you've never done it before. Like, come on, man. Tell me how that makes any sense, right? And then the other part of it, like, sometimes imposter syndrome is a temporary lapse in who the F you are, right? We forget who we are in the moment. You forget all of those receipts, all those accomplishments, all those late nights, every early morning, every single no that finally led to that yes moment. And you stand in that yes moment, right? So many of us constantly live in these moments of impossibility, and I've talked about this before. We felt that the thing was impossible. We felt that this place was impossible. We felt that this accomplishment was impossible. We felt that this meeting was impossible, that the phone call was impossible, the stage in your life was impossible, this level of health that you have in this moment with your amazing body was impossible, that marriage was impossible, that relationship was impossible, being able to retire your family was impossible, being able to generate wealth was impossible, and now you're literally sitting in possibility. And for some people, that road ended up being easier than it was, and so that is the tension you feel in your body, right? And for some of us, you fought that fight so hard, and now you're in a moment that you don't have to fight as hard anymore, and you can't even reconcile that in your mind. That is you fighting for your limitations, and so you have to ask yourself, like, one, what is it that I really want? Two, what am I carrying with me in my body that makes me continue to fight for low vibrational things, for low vibrational rooms, I'm not even going to say low vibrational plates, but I want to say it. Low vibrational conversations or low vibrational experiences. Like, you have to call that out of you, and that only comes with a very honest conversation with yourself as to why you continue to fight for your limitations. And so the question that you can ask yourself is, what does your life look like when you don't have to fight anymore? You don't have to fight anyone. You don't have to fight anything. You don't have to fight yourself. What does your life look like when you no longer have to fight? You don't have to put on any armor. You don't have to pick up the sword. You don't have to pick up the bow and arrow. You don't have to pick up the rocks. No one is fighting with you, and you are no longer fighting with yourself. I don't think many of us have even asked ourselves that question. What does it look like to get up in the morning, tomorrow morning, and you don't have to fight anything? And for some people, like, that might bring chills into your body even thinking about that, because all we know is to do is fight. And so when we do have the abundance in our lives, when the blessings that we're asking for come into our lives, when the right people come into our lives, when the right help come into our lives, when the right person on our team, we add the right person on our team that comes into our lives, the only thing that we know is having the fight response. So we fight the thing that we have been asking the universe, asking whoever we pray to bring to us. And our immediate response, because we've always been ready to fight, we've always been trained to fight, is to keep holding on to the old you, the old version of your business, the old version of your career, But when you get the thing that you want, you have to turn into a different type of leader. You have to turn into a different type of being that can kind of clean the slate to be ready to, like, with open arms, bring in and accept, and then move in and step in a completely different direction that welcomes the absolute thing that we want to make things much easier in our life and have much flow. And if we don't do that, we will continue and be on a continuous path of constantly fighting and always have that tension in our body, right? Our body is always on red, always on 10, ready to go. Even from a love standpoint, what does it mean to stop fighting love and abundance and opportunity? And dare I say, help. What does it mean to stop fighting the help that you need in your life? What does that look like? And so I think I might leave on that question, right? What does it look like for you to stop fighting in all aspects of your life? All right, so Anisha Smith, hey, let me catch up on comments, y'all. All right. Let's see. And good Sunday, y'all. Your advice regarding premium clients shifted my mindset and my practice. Raising my mindset and my prices was a game changer. Thank you. Optimal Health Acupuncture from yesterday, right? I did a Monetize Your Genius session at Mind Valley's A-Fest yesterday. That was so dope, so good. Hey, Charisma, this is so good. Anissa Smith, I mentioned that earlier this year to someone. Powerful. Thank y'all for the positive words today. Thank you so much for this. I needed to hear this today. And so that's it. That's what we're going to leave on, right? Like I started, if you fight for your limitations, you absolutely get to keep them. And so I want you to just write down in your notebook today, on your tablet, whatever it is that you have, of what does my life look like when I no longer have to fight? And like really take a deep breath in when you ask yourself that question, because that's a really, really big question for people that have been fighting in some sort of capacity their entire life. You have been in war for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years of your life. For however many generations that are joining me on this, you have been at war. What does it look like for your body to no longer be at war with itself from a health standpoint? What does it look like to no longer be at war with your customer and your clients because you have identified a business model that has flow and ease? What does it look like to no longer be at war with money coming to you because so many of us have the brilliant genius ideas and business models, but we have our prices don't reflect that. So we're constantly at war with people who do not value what we bring because we have not put the value in it because we're constantly fighting. What does it mean to not be at war with your business? What does it mean to not be at war with your career? Because so many of us accept a little because we think something is better than nothing. What does it look like when you're no longer at war with your family? Right? Because, some family you keep close and some, they just got to stay over there. Hey, cousin, hey, and you keep it moving. What does it mean to no longer be at war in your love life? Right? Because there's honesty and there's transparency. What does it mean to no longer be at war with your friendships? Right? Some friends are here for a lifetime and some are here for a season, and some, y'all just gotta be regulated to social media posts and updates, and that's it. What does it mean to no longer be at war with the things that you want in life? Because you are wholeheartedly asking yourself, what is it that I want? And you are being as honest as possible with yourself, even if that means that the position that you move to is no longer sexy to corporate America and it's something that's no longer approved by people. Like, what does it mean to no longer be at war with anything? Because it's very much a possibility, but it doesn't happen by serendipity, right? It just doesn't, it's not this thing that you pull out the air. You really have to define that. And so by defining that is taking out some pen and paper and saying, really kind of answering those two questions, and then whatever the prompt is that most resonates with your life, right? What does it look like when I no longer have to fight this person, this place, this thing? Some of it is like, what does it mean? What does it look like when you're no longer in war with the place that you live in? Because some of the neighborhoods that we live in, some of our apartments and our homes and our condos that we live in, we are at war with it because the feng shui is off, right? And it doesn't serve us. It doesn't excite us the way that we need it to be. And so what does it mean when I'm no longer fighting X, Y, and Z? And for some of us, it's like, what does it mean when I'm no longer fighting the abundance that I keep asking for? Because you cannot hold two truths in that instance at the same time. You cannot be asking for the thing that you want and then secretly at the same time thinking that it will never happen for you. I say that to absolute exhaustion. And so what does it mean when you are no longer fighting whatever the thing that it is that you are currently fighting, right? And then what does it mean to no longer be at war with yourself, people, places, or things, or resource, whatever it means? For some of you, raising money, like some of it's that. Like, what does it mean to no longer fight jerk VCs and investors, right? What does it mean to no longer fight the craziness of corporate America? Some of us have just never asked ourselves the question differently. We may say, like, what is it that I want to do, or how much money do I want to make? But like, sometimes that comes with a level of war that we don't have the armor to fight. And we're tired of fighting that, right? In the way that we have had to fight it our entire lives. And if you are a person of beautiful color, we have been born being told that all we have to do is fight. And so it makes it very hard to live guilt-free with abundance and openness and love, because we've always been told that we should expect to fight. And there are there are very real and present danger, absolutely, absolutely. But if we wake up every morning putting the armor on, before we put the oxygen mask on, and before we design the intention for the day, I feel like I'm getting real woo-woo on y'all. And maybe that's some of what has just been the experience of this weekend at A-Fest, but it's also just been, like I said in the very beginning, this conversation that I was having with this woman about her business. And I finally got to a point after trying to give her all the strategy, and I'm like, you know what? None of this strategy will work for you until you change your operating system, right? And if any of us who've ever used computers, we know, right? In order to put a new operating system on your computer so that you can optimize what it does for you, you have to first remove the current operating system. And then you get to install a new operating system. And some of us, things aren't clicking for us, even though it's the right thing for us in that right moment, because we have an old operating system that we're trying to stack new operating systems on. And when you get an error message and your computer might shut down and actually start smoking or something, right? Like it'll just start exploding. I say that as I had a water bottle on my computer and I see water draining. So hold on, y'all. Because I need that thing to work. All right, and so I will stop there, y'all, because I want to get to this session, this 11 o'clock. It was 11 o'clock where I'm at session, but go back and watch the replay. I think there were just some things that many of us, I needed to talk through this for myself too, right? But then I also just wanted to share some of that feeling and reflection and advice and just sage wisdom that I've also picked up from some amazing people along the way. And so please stop fighting for your limitations. They don't serve you. They have not served you. And all they do is keep you in your body with this toxic energy of always fighting everything that is meant to up-level you and serve you, bring you happiness, bring you abundance, bring you strategy, and bring the people that can truly, truly move things forward from you. And if you continue to fight those things, you know what? You build up a fortress, and none of that stuff ever comes back towards your way again. And so, Black Collective Gallery, hey Terrence, thank you for allowing us to be a part of this moment with you. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your time on Sunday with me. And so, I'll make sure I get this saved, y'all, so that you have it. I just want to say you're hitting some really strong points. It's I feel like it's the Hatcher Mitchell family line of preachers. One of my friends was telling me, like, he's like, you're literally turning into a pastor and a preacher that curses every now and then. And I was like, I don't see it. I don't see it. He's like, no, it's really oozing out of you. And I'm like, well, I have on my dad's side, I have a lot of uncles that are pastors and preachers. My great grandfather was a preacher. A funny story, and I'm gonna close this, but Derek and I, we randomly met in DC, and when we first met, we randomly met in DC, and I remember Derek telling me that he was from Bainbridge, Georgia, and I'm like, we're probably cousins. We're not cousins, right? But my grandmother is from Bainbridge, Georgia, so I was just like, dude, that's so weird, because we randomly met in DC. And so years ago, one of his aunts actually told us that our great-grandfathers knew each other. And so my great-grandfather, give me a second. Let me tell you how weird and strange and cool life can be sometimes. And so a few years ago, we were in Georgia for, I don't know, we go up a few times a year to visit his family. And we were in Georgia, and one of his aunts said, you know, your great-grandfathers knew each other. And so my great-grandfather, E. Mitchell, was a pastor who had a radio station. And Derek's great-grandfather was also a pastor in Bainbridge, Georgia. And when my great-grandfather would go travel to other churches to preach, Derek's great-grandfather would sit in and host his shows for him. They were really, really, really good friends. And I don't even know why I'm telling y'all that story. Oh, the preacher part, right? And so Derek's family comes from a line of preachers as well. And then my great-grandfather and a bunch of my great uncles and current uncles are pastors as well. And so I always, you know, when people ask us the story of how we met, I always tell them that part, because I was like, maybe our great-grandfathers used to sit in the radio station or sit at the church and talk about how cool it would be for one of our families to get together or get married or like merge the families in some way, and we happen to be it. But when I say we randomly met in the train station at DC, we randomly met, and anything could have been different that day and we would have never met. And so to hear that our great-grandfathers knew each other and we randomly met in DC has been like such a cool thing. And when you talk about like divine order and things like that, that was definitely it. So all right, y'all have a good Sunday. If any of you are entrepreneurs that are thinking about applying to the prize, you have until tomorrow. I'm going to come back tomorrow and just kind of share some positive words for anyone that is in the last mile of completing their application. But for today, we're talking about limitations. We're talking about being in war with yourself, and stop fighting the fight, especially when it's something that is positive that is supposed to come into your life. Change it and bless it and make sure that you have a more ease and flow. Let's stop fighting that, right? Because that fight no longer serves us. Bye, y'all.